Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and man, much appreciated you guys swinging by the channel and spending some of your day with me. Always grateful to have you guys around the channel here. Guys, I want to talk about some unbelievable things I saw yesterday up at Lake of the Ozarks. I was up there for the BFL Super Tournament, and there were some things that I saw that were related to the tournament, related to fishing, and not related that I want to cover in today's video. I've been wanting to do this video for a while on Lake of the Ozarks, but we're going to get into that today's video, and definitely drop a comment after I get done here. Let me know what you guys think about it. Also, guys, I had several people ask me yesterday about the big one that I caught. If you guys saw the thumbnail, well, actually, in the thumbnail in this video, I put the same thumbnail up. I had several people ask me about that big one I caught yesterday in the tournament. It came on my Blaukat Throwback jig, half-ounce jig here. Had the Zoom Super Chunk trailer on it. 25-pound test Seaguar Vizex with my Megabass Alkalies flipping stick. Old school bass fishing, the way that I love to fish. But I just caught like a non-keeper, like a 14 3/4 incher. And then like 2 casts later, I caught that big one, I think off of the same little tree that was in the water. But anyway, that happened the first 5 minutes of the tournament. I thought it was going to be a hog fest, but a lot of small fish yesterday. So that's how I caught that. Also, guys, I'll have my Blaukat Throwback jig link in the description of this video. You can get it through my Tackle Warehouse link. I'll put that in my Tackle Warehouse link, and you can get that. And one more thing, guys, quick. Thank you very much for everybody that's taking time to subscribe here at Intuitive Angling. Man, if you like the channel and you want to support the channel and you don't want to spend any money on the channel, just clicking that subscribe button is the best way to do it. Really appreciate that from me and my family. Okay. There's 2 different things I want to talk about here in Lake of the Ozarks. I want to talk about what I saw with the fishing yesterday, and I want to talk about what I saw about the lake in general yesterday. Now, if you guys saw the video yesterday, I commented on this a little bit, but Lake of the Ozarks, if you've ever been up there, a lot of you guys that have never fished Lake of the Ozarks don't realize the recreational boat traffic on that lake. I think it's pretty safe to say that on the weekend, Lake of the Ozarks has the most severe big boat traffic of any lake in the United States. There's people killed up there all the time in boat wrecks. And you've got, I think they said there's something like, God, I can't remember how many docks there were. There's just an unbelievable amount of docks. The lake's about 60,000 acres, and there's literally, you can pretty much just walk across docks for the whole 60,000 acres. Unbelievable, heavily developed lake, that type of thing. But one of the things I want to talk about this before I get into the video here is when you go to Lake of the Ozarks on a weekend there, I have never in my entire life seen so many $1 million bass boats on the lake. I'm talking about these ones out there that there's those 40 and 50 foot boats that have like 4 and 5 motors hanging off the back of them. You know, all of them are brand new, they look like. And there's always like a party going on in the boat, and there's a bunch of 30-something-year-old dudes with no shirts and girls in bikinis on these freaking boats. And I'm talking about it seems like there's thousands of them on the lake. And then you get on the lake and you've got these multi $3 to $5 million homes up on the lake, and these boat docks, guys. These are like $500,000 boat docks, and they pull these rigs up into the boat docks, go up to their house, and it's a weekend home. Okay, here's the question I want to ask. I talked about this yesterday. If you didn't see the video, because it just freaks me out. Where does this money come from? If you figure the average household income in the United States out of 330 some million people is like 70 or 80,000 a year for a household income, where are these dudes getting the bank to obviously throw down like $10 million on their weekend house at the Lake of the Ozarks and their weekend toys, probably spend $1,000 a day on gas, that type of thing. And then they got other homes somewhere else. Where does this come from? Who are these dudes? It's like, drop a comment in the video here if you want to, if you can answer that, because I was running back yesterday, because I ran a long way up the lake so I could see the whole lake pretty much running back. And it's like, I just couldn't believe it. I could not believe how many, just hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of offshore type big boats I saw on that lake yesterday. It was freaking unbelievable. So, okay, that's one thing that was unbelievable. The next thing is I want to talk about what has happened to Lake of the Ozarks. If you fish Lake of the Ozarks or if you never fished it. Now, I have fished Lake of the Ozarks since the early 1980s. It's here in the middle of Missouri. It's right around my home here. And one of the things that Lake of the Ozarks has always been, there's always been a ton of boat docks on it. And there's always been a couple different patterns and techniques that produce. Now, prior to about probably, I'm going to guess, 15 years ago or something like that, you could catch a lot of fish on Lake of the Ozarks fishing stuff besides boat docks. You could catch them on points, you could catch them on rocky banks, you could especially catch them on any lay down trees that are in the water. Lay down logs, fallen trees, that type of stuff. And most of the tournaments were won in the extremities. In other words, there's a lot of major creek arms and river arms coming into Lake of the Ozarks. And most of the tournaments that I fished down there in the 90s and the 2000s, it was won by dudes running way up the river, guys going to the back ends of the creeks, throwing spinner baits and throwing jigs and stuff like that around shallow targets. That was the deal. That's how everybody dominated the lake. Guys, now if you do that, you don't have a shot. You probably don't even have a shot at getting a check most of the time. That lake has completely morphed into something that it has become such a heavy local favorite lake that I have never seen any other lake in the country like that. You've got tons of people that live up there, locals that have brush piles planted out all over the lake, and people have always planted brush at Lake of the Ozarks, but now with the cheater box, they're more efficient now than they've ever been with fishing these brush piles. Because in the past, let's say for example, you put a brush pile out on this little secondary point and you lined it up with two houses or something, and you threw a plastic worm over there, and there may or may not be a bass in there. Now, these guys pull up to the hundreds and hundreds of boat docks that they have found with either side imaging or they put in there. They scan their cheater box on that brush pile. If they see some fish out there, they start fishing it. If not, they go to the other 500 brush piles they got on the lake. And that's what they do 12 months out of the year. In the wintertime, they'll fish a swim bait and a jerk bait over the top of it. If it's warmer, they'll fish a football head jig, crankbait, or a Texas rig worm. And therefore, it is literally impossible almost. Now, I'm not saying you can't do it. Occasionally, the stars will line up perfect and you can catch them some other way. But basically, you cannot compete, and you can't hardly even make a check at Lake of the Ozarks unless you're fishing like that. And it's really strange because one of the things that I found out about Lake of the Ozarks is there's so many boat docks on Lake of the Ozarks that I think that probably 70% of the bass, 75% of the bass that live on boat docks don't hardly ever see a lure because they live on the part of the dock that is completely inaccessible. Say, for example, if you've got a boat slip there and you've got a boat in it, and then you've got a walkway 30 foot up from the outside of that dock, and you've got this much space between the dock and the boat with chains on it, the bass live underneath those walkways, 30 foot up in there behind that boat. You can't get a lure to them. Now, that's probably good for the overall fish population in the lake, but do those fish just live there their entire lives and they're never caught by anybody? Once in a while, one of them might swim out to the end of the dock and get caught if it's there at the right place at the right time. So that's one of the other aspects with it. But one of the things that I have noticed here is the unbelievable amount of fish that are not in the traditional areas of Lake of the Ozarks like they used to be. Now, I think a lot of this has to do with fishing pressure because, say, for example, a lot of the guys here in Missouri that are really famous local fishermen, they got known for running up the rivers and running in the back of the creeks. And then their buddy told their buddy, and their buddy told their buddy, and the next thing you know, everybody's up in the back of the creeks hauling those fish down the lake, 50 miles down the lake, and those areas never get restocked or replenished. That's why one of the things that is depressing to me about Lake of the Ozarks, because I like to fish like that, is that all of these traditional areas at Lake of the Ozarks simply do not have not only the population of bass, but they don't have the size of the bass. It's almost like the bass that use those type of water anymore are smaller bass, a lot of non-keepers. And those big ones are over those deep brush piles and they're tucked into those docks where you can't reach them. That is why Lake of the Ozarks, again, it is extremely difficult to compete against the locals up there. Out of all the lakes I've fished across the country my entire life, I rate Lake of the Ozarks as the number one heavily local dominated lake that is out there. And I think that's a product of a lot of different stuff. It's a product of the lake, the fishing pressure, inherently how the lake is set up. And anymore, guys, if you're at Lake of the Ozarks, unless you figured out some little obscure dock pattern, or you're fishing some offshore brush piles, you're going to catch some fish, but you're just going to catch small ones. For whatever reason, most of the non-keeper bass at Lake of the Ozarks live on the best looking structure. If you pull up to a bank over there and you see 2 or 3 lay down trees, nice looking area, you're going to catch a 13-incher off of it. If you pull up to, a real nice isolated dock that you can get to every part of it, say there's not a boat in there and you could actually fish anywhere you want to, there's a 13-incher in there. All those big ones are, in the cheater box friendly areas or impossible to catch on the boat docks. So, oh no, it's a weird lake, man. It is. The only thing that really levels the playing field at Lake of the Ozarks, like a lot of lakes, is when the fish are spawning. When the water temperature is 60 degrees, 60, 65 degrees in April, then everybody has an open shot. Everybody has a shot at catching them because most of those bass are up shallow, either looking for beds, spawning, getting ready to beds, garden fry. But other than that, it's a local heavy lake like I have never seen before, and it's gotten more and more like that as the years went by. It didn't used to be like that. Outsiders could come in and win there in the past, but not so much anymore. Anyway, just a few random thoughts about the Ozarks, guys. Hope you're all well. We'll talk later.